Hey everyone, I wanted to give a quick overview of CPU cooler options for Xeon 1156, 1155, 1150, and 1151 sockets. Sometimes you're limited as to what CPU cooler you can use because they have a pre-installed backplate. The motherboard actually has a metal backplate that's pre-attached, and in this case this one's like super glued on, so it's going to be really hard to get this off without damaging the board. It does use a standard thread for the little standoff that goes through the board and through the mounting hole. This is the X8 SIL combo with the X3470 socket 1156. It comes with a Dynatron 60mm copper and aluminum heatsink. See, it's got a little bit of copper down here, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3 heat pipes and aluminum fin array. So this is a decent cooler. The only downside is it's a 60mm fan, and the fan it comes with is really high performance, designed for like server use. It moves a ton of air, but it's very, very loud. So you can solve this by adjusting the fan speed in the BIOS, and it helps, but the actual motor of this is still, it like vibrates a little bit and has a little bit of like a click to it. So because it's mounted directly to the heatsink, you can actually kind of hear the clicking even on lower speeds. So in my opinion, that's not ideal. For most people, if you throw it in a case and put it away and like put it in a closet or something like that, it's not a big deal. On low speed, it's really not an issue unless you're super picky. The CPU cooler itself is adequate. I wouldn't say it's great. At totally stock speeds, running the processor pretty hard, it'll get up to about 80 Celsius with a moderate fan setting in the BIOS. There are a couple options you can do for the fan. You can actually just replace this 60mm fan. This one's a Fractal Design 60mm. The only downside to this one is that if you use it, it's only 3-pin. It doesn't have 4-pin PWM. And unfortunately, Supermicro boards, I would say at least 90% of them, don't have DC fan control. They only have PWM fan control, so that means you need to have a 4-pin to adjust the speed of the fan. So regardless of your fan setting, this one's going to run full speed. Now that said, full speed on this guy is not very loud. It does move quite a bit of air, and if you hear any fan speed or fan noise, it's from the same fan that's in that computer over there. Same exact cooler. And that one's running at full speed, and it's totally fine. Like, it's in my living room, nobody's complained about it. It's not a big deal. So this one's okay. I think this one's around $7. This is probably what I would suggest for most people. Now, most people will recognize this as a Noctua fan. These are really expensive, but they're fantastic. This one's a 4-pin PWM, 60mm. It has these rubber like half grommets on the sides that prevent vibration when you mount it against the cooler, so it helps there. They've got a unique fan blade design with little, I guess like little, I don't know, they're raised parts of the blade to help with airflow and guide the air. But yeah, these are super over-engineered. A lot of people think they're really ugly. But they are really expensive, and they do come with a bunch of extras in the box. Like every other Noctua fan, the 60mm comes with the rubber mountings, a fan, like a PWM extension, a PWM splitter, and a low noise adapter. So these are awesome. This one runs, like, you could run this at full speed and you'd barely notice the noise. It's definitely quieter than the Fractal at full speed. So I would say that most people can run this one full speed. and never care. That said, putting it on the performance setting, which is the second, so there's full speed, there's performance, there's balanced, and then there's energy saving, and those are the 4 fan modes. On performance mode, this fan is practically inaudible. So on the second highest fan speed mode, it's pretty much inaudible, and I've used it on that, and it's been great. So neither one of these will cool as well as the fan that's included with this, but this is pretty much unbearable to deal with at full speed or anything above the balanced / moderate setting. Okay, so that's just kind of an overview of what you can do with the included cooler. Oh, one last thing. With the Fractal, since it's only 3-pin, you can get a low noise adapter like what comes with the Fractal, and that'll cut the speed down to about 70%. So if you could find a low noise adapter for like $1 or $2 on Amazon, that's probably the way to go. That's a decent upgrade, and you'll have a quiet cooler, and it'll be effective enough. So on Amazon, there's another Dynatron cooler. This is the same one I used in the live stream NAS build. It's got a copper slug, aluminum fins, no heat pipes, 92mm fan, and it's 4-pin PWM as well. This one cools pretty well. I would say it's about 20%, 15-20% better than the included Dynatron. And I think this one's, I think I already said it's like 25 or 30 bucks. It really depends where you get it. But this one mounts the same way. You just use the 4 screws here. It's the same as this one. And then it's just these screws with spring retention. So again, really easy to mount. This is a decent upgrade, and it's way quieter than this one. And then, in my opinion, the best upgrade outside of all-in-one water cooling like the Corsair H55 is the Arctic i11, and in this case this one's a CO model, which is designed for continuous operation. These go on sale for about 20 bucks on NewEgg or Amazon, but the only thing to consider is that they're tall. So this one's you can see it's considerably taller just from the box, so you can tell it's a upright standing heatsink. But it's going to cool way better than anything here, and it's going to be quieter. So if you're not using a low profile case or you have the room for it, I would say definitely go with this if you have the extra scratch. If not, pick up one of these little Fractal fans for 6 or 7 bucks and just call it a day. Since we have everything here, I'm going to go ahead and mount this Arctic cooling one. And then after that, I'm going to give you a couple fan noise comparisons between the 3 of these. So this one and then these 2. So yeah, let's get this unboxed and we'll mount this one real quick. So this is the included backplate thing. This uses the same threads as what's on the board currently, so we're not going to use this. I'll get my other screwdriver. So I mentioned the Corsair H55, and the Corsair H50 will also work. I'm actually pretty sure most of their coolers will work, but I know for a fact the H50 and the H55 will also work. I don't have one on hand. I get one in a couple days, so when I do the complete build of the upcoming series, I'll be throwing one of those in, and I'll show you how to mount that as well. But those are pretty good options. Definitely more than really anyone would need, and way more than necessary for this kind of build. But you know, why not? This back one's being a pain right here. So the thermal paste on these looks to be pretty dry. So even if you don't plan on changing the cooler, it might be a good idea just to clean off the CPU with rubbing alcohol and clean off this, replace the thermal paste. You'll get a lot better cooling performance if you replace that. So that's what we're gonna do. I think I should have a little bit of rubbing alcohol left. Always put it on your paper towel or your cloth. Never pour it directly on the CPU. Just do one little pass like that, and go back and clean it up. I'm really excited to show you guys the builds that I'm doing with the X3470 and this combo. I'm super pleased with just how just the value of the board and the combo, and all the things that you can do with it. So really can't wait to make some videos on that. Oh, and I guess we should do this heatsink too before we do this. So this heatsink has two little tension arms that pull up against a retaining U-shaped bracket. So they pull up against like that. What you want to do is you push on each one and ever so carefully rotate the heatsink a little. I don't know, actually, this looks like they use a thermal pad or some thermal glue, so I'm not gonna mess with that guy. If they didn't, then I would go ahead and replace that thermal paste there, but we'll leave that one alone. It should be okay. All right, so here's our i11. I'm gonna take the fan off. Just pull against the side. And now the neat trick with this is with the fan, you have a sticker on top. Well, if you flip the fan upside down, there's no sticker, and you just have a nice looking fan. So we'll do that. We'll have the fan upside down. The one kind of downside is that the wire comes out near the top instead of near the bottom, but meh. I think it looks nicer. So we'll grab our mounting brackets. So like I was saying earlier in the video, 1155, 1156, 1150, and 1151 all use the same mounting pattern. So the holes are the same distance apart. But just ensure that your bracket, your Xeon bracket, has the same threading. So these are the screws we're going to be using. These are the finer thread ones. These larger thread ones are for socket 2011. All of socket 2011s have a backplate like this one built in, regardless of whether it's a desktop socket or a server socket, server motherboard. All of 2011 has a backplate. Most of the other 1150, 11.5X sockets don't have backplates, but some do, like this one. So we're just going to double check these screws have the correct threading. They do. So the two sort of base plates here. We just mount with 2 screws, the smallest ones. So unfortunately, I like to use G-Lid GC Extreme thermal paste. I ran out, so I'll just be using the Arctic MX4 that comes with the cooler. But if you do have a couple extra bucks, G-Lid GC Extreme is the best non-metal non-conductive thermal paste that's not like $30. And it really will make a difference, even from switching to something like MX5 or MX4. Ooh, looks like there's a little bit of a nice little dent in the heatsink there in the back, in the fins. Oh well, I mean, it's 20 bucks. It won't affect performance at all. Just looks kind of nasty. Might be able to straighten it out. Let's take a look. See, there's a little blemish there, and there's one there. But I've had quite a few of these, and none of them have come in this kind of condition, so that's unfortunate. But it's not something I'm gonna worry about. It looks kind of nasty from the back, but if you're looking at it this way, you're not gonna see it. And the fan goes on this side anyway, and this side looks to be pretty clean. Make sure you take the protective sticker off the bottom. Just gonna give this one more little wipe down, make sure it's dry. Here's the included MX4. That's probably a tad too much. Try to take some of it up. So we want our fan mounts on these little notches here. The fan sucks in air through the front and blows hot air through the back. So we're gonna face it this way towards the rear I/O shield. Just align it relatively close to the holes there. Okay. And take one screw each, turn it in a couple turns. So you could mount this in, because it's a square socket, you can mount it in any direction you want, really. There is enough clearance over the RAM to mount it horizontally if you want. The fan won't even clear it, so it's pretty cool. So I'm going to screw all 4 of these down until they touch, just barely touch the bracket. Make a second pass, and so I'll show you on the 2011 screws, but the threading actually stops part way up the screw, so you can't over tighten these. Just tighten them down all the way until they stop, and don't force them. Okay, it is mounted, nice and solid. Take our fan, and I'm going to align the top plane of the fan with the top part of the heatsink. You can adjust it up and down slightly. You need to do the left side first, then just clip the right side on. Oh, looks like I'm a little low. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fan wire and come down underneath the heatsink, between the heat pipes underneath. And up to fan number 1. That's it. So this is how it will look in your case. Here's what the Dynatron sounds like at full speed. Here's the Dynatron on balanced mode. Here's the Fractal Design 60mm in full speed. Here's the Noctua 60mm full speed. Really any noise you hear outside of a little bit of air is the computer that's powering this thing, so it's really, really quiet. I'm not even going to bother showing you lower speeds, it's really inaudible. Here's the Arctic i11 CEO in full speed mode. It's moving quite a bit of air. It's pretty quiet though. I would imagine that it wouldn't be too audible with this whole thing in a case. Here's the i11 CO in balance mode. Here's the i11 CO in energy saving mode. It's basically inaudible from 6 inches, and any noise that you hear again is from the actual computer it's running on, or just powering it. So yeah, sorry I couldn't make a more scientific noise, airflow, temperature test, but just from my experience, the i11 CEO, if you can fit it in your case, this is definitely the way to go. It's only 20 bucks, and it's got 4-pin PWM, pretty much everything you need. It's super quiet, cools great. If you're on a budget, I would say pick up one of these little Fractal 60 millimeters, just place it on that, or just replace it on the stock heatsink and replace the thermal paste as well, and then you should be good to go.